Generations. First, we talked about the high, the awakening, unraveling, and crisis, right? Then you talk about the generational archetypes, right? The prophet, nomad, hero, and artist.
Yes.
These are born in each one of these four turnings.
And they always have the same pattern. So a prophet archetype always has the same basic life cycle story. They're born in the era, the generation-long era after the war, right? They're born and raised as kids. They come of age in the awakening, right? And they're spearheading these attacks on the institutions of their parents, these very strong institutions built by the parents. The problem with these institutions is not that they're failing, not like today. The problem with these institutions is that they work too well. They're too good. That's what the boomers hated. You know, our parents did everything right. They were too strong. And what is the one refrain which characterizes every awakening? It's salvation not by works, but by faith, by going in, the heart, you know. So moving from salvation by works to salvation by faith is the clarion call for every young generation coming of age and awakening. And by works, they mean all these big projects by their parents, right? Meaningless. Turn inside. Look at who you really are. Be authentic, right? So that's the boomer story. And the boomers always, you know, go into midlife during this kind of culture worry kind of period that we've been through. And then in entering old age, they always take America into and through the next great national crisis. I mean, you know, Lincoln's generation, you know, took us into the Civil War. But so that is that archetype. And then you look at other archetypes, they're different. A hero archetype, like the GI generation that took us through, you know, World War II, and they were a Promethean generation of builders, right? I mean, not only did they take us through the Great Depression, they won World War II, they conquered half the earth, but then they were builders during the American High. The interstate highways, the miracle vaccines, the trips to the moon, the Great Society, and no generation in American history poured more concrete than that generation did. Building all the dams, by the way, that boomers then later wanted to take down, blow up all their dams, all of their dikes. But that generation has a very different location in history. They're always born just after an awakening, when attitudes toward child rearing are becoming more protective. They come of age during the crisis, and then later on, entering old age is during the awakening. So they're the generation of elders that gets greeted, right, in old age as senior leaders by the next awakening. The nomad archetype are the children of the awakening. They generally are the throwaway kids. During the awakening, no one is really, you know, families are minimally engaged with kids. Everyone is experimenting. Everyone is discovering themselves. This is generally a time of great social turbulence, and it's their fate to be kids in that era. They are in midlife during the crisis, and they tend to be the realistic, hands-on doers in midlife. For example, during World War II, the nomad archetype was the lost generation, and these would have been, you know, your tough generals like George Patton or you know, the Harry Truman types. The Ridgways and, you know, all the Eisenhowers and so on. They were the tough guys who took us through, made often brutal decisions that they had to make, and took us through it. Interesting, you know, their legacy. And finally, the artist archetype are the children of the crisis. And they become very different from...
Because they can afford to.
Well, they're the children of the crisis, so they're very protective. They're very protected, excuse me.
So they rebel.
No, they don't rebel. They are very well socialized. And they didn't grow up after the crisis. They grew up during the crisis. Mm-hmm. So they are very socialized. So you got the generation in the late 40s and 1950s on college campuses right after World War II. Their motto was, we don't want to change the system. A lot of the GIs, not only conquering the world, but a lot of them became communists. I mean, anyone who saw Oppenheimer realizes a lot of this generation joined the Communist Party. They were socialists. A lot of them were radicals. The silent generation motto was, we don't want to change the system. We want to work within the system. We want to join big corporations and work with huge numbers of other people. We kind of want to stay anonymous. We just want to silent. They got the name Silent Generation, by the way, because of an essay that was written in the Time magazine in 1951 about these kids who never protested, just wanted to join and be helpful. They were nice, and they had a certain amount of social conscience. This was the civil rights generation. Many of them went down to the South, became civil rights workers, but they didn't want to put a brick through the window like boomers. They always thought there was a way they could keep the system going, but just make it more humane. So it's very interesting. Each of these archetypes have played a very crucial role in American history.
So
in these uncertain times, if there's anything we need people to believe the future looks bright. So if you've heard about me saying this mission to you, we're on a mission to get 1 million people to wear this gear. And this is what we're doing. If you buy one of these hats, there's a category of buying one hat, getting the second one free. If you haven't yet worn this gear publicly, go ahead and test it out. Buy some of the gear, wear it in public, and see how many people will stop by and say, you also watch Valuetainment? You also follow PBD Podcast? I do too. Place your order. Go to vtmerch.com, click on the link above or below, place your order, and represent the VT and the PBD Podcast gear.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.